The Henderson house sat on Maple Street like a magazine spread, white shutters, manicured hedges, a circular driveway that screamed success. Maya Henderson had spent 18 months designing the backyard renovation, and every penny of the $47,000 investment showed. The pool was the centerpiece, a resort-style saltwater installation with a mosaic tile waterline depicting dolphins leaping through waves. There was a built-in spa, a cascading waterfall feature, and ambient lighting that transformed the entire space into something from a luxury travel brochure. The contractors had finished on a Thursday. By Saturday morning, Maya had already hosted her first swim. She was floating on an inflatable lounger, a glass of rosé sweating in her hand, when she first heard the gate. The side gate between her property and the Marshalls wasn't locked. Maya had never seen a reason to lock it. They were neighbors, not prisoners. The neighborhood had an informal ethos of friendliness, the kind where people waved from driveways and occasionally borrowed tools without returning them for 3 months. When Corinne Marshall pushed through that gate, trailing her 2 children and a beach bag, Maya assumed it was an accident. "Hi," Corinne called out, waving. "We heard you finished. The kids were dying to see it." Corinne was the type of woman who wore her friendliness like a uniform, bright smile, yoga pants, a ponytail that looked effortless but certainly wasn't. She had moved to the neighborhood 18 months ago with her accountant husband, Derek, and their twins, aged 7 and 9. They lived in a modest split-level 2 houses down and across the street. Their backyard was small and sloped, with a storage shed and a patchy lawn that Corinne had attempted to landscape with mixed results. "Oh," Maya said, pulling herself up on the lounger. She wasn't unfriendly, but she wasn't particularly warm either. "Welcome to come see it." The children didn't need to be told twice. They exploded into motion, shoes kicked off, clothes shed down to Batman and Princess Elsa swimsuits in seconds, and cannonballed into the pool with the kind of pure joy that makes parents simultaneously delighted and terrified. Corinne laughed, that bright, musical laugh, and set her bag down on one of the loungers. "This is incredible," Corinne said, surveying the space. "Derek always says we need to get the kids swimming lessons. They're water bobbies, but we just can't justify a pool with our schedule. You know how it is." Maya didn't know, actually. She had no children by choice. But she smiled anyway and returned to her lounger, hoping Corinne would take the hint and sit elsewhere, far elsewhere, ideally, so she could return to her book and her wine. Corinne did sit on another lounger. She sat for the entire afternoon. At first, it seemed harmless. She watched her kids, who were actually pretty well behaved despite their enthusiasm, and she chatted. She asked about the construction process, the contractors, the cost, which Maya deflected, the maintenance schedule, and whether Maya had thought about getting a hot tub to go with it. "The spa is basically a hot tub," Maya said politely. "Oh my God, it is," Corinne said, delighted, as if Maya had just explained rocket science. What Maya didn't realize was that this was the first of many visits. By mid-June, Corinne had developed what appeared to be a semi-permanent residence on one of the loungers. She came over on Tuesday mornings after her yoga class. She came over on Thursday evenings after picking the kids up from school. She came over on Saturday mornings while Derek slept in. She came over on random Wednesday afternoons with her friend Tanya, and the 2 of them would sit poolside, talking about their book club and drinking wine that Corinne had started bringing. "It's just so nice to have a place for the kids to play," Corinne said one afternoon, watching her children practice their swimming strokes. "Our neighbors on the other side have that awful little plastic pool, you know the kind, the ones from Walmart. This is just so much better." The problem was that Corinne had started referring to the pool in a way that made Maya's skin crawl. "When are we going to the pool?" the kids would ask. "We have to stop by the pool," Corinne would say to her husband. "I'm so grateful to have the pool nearby," Corinne said to one of their other neighbors, Brenda, at the community mailbox. "It's been such a gift for the kids this summer." Gift, as if Maya had installed a $47,000 amenity specifically so that Corinne's children could play. As if this was charity. The turning point came in mid-July at the neighborhood cookout. It was an annual event, held in the common area near the mailboxes. Everyone brought dishes, there were picnic tables and a charcoal grill, and the kids ran around in a pack while adults drank beer and complained about property taxes. Maya attended out of a sense of obligation, not desire. She brought a store-bought pasta salad and stood near the periphery, sipping a hard seltzer and checking her phone. Corinne found her almost immediately. Maya, I wanted to tell you, we're having the kids' birthday party in August, and we were thinking of doing it at your place. We could use the pool, obviously. Would that work? Maya felt the words land like a slap. What? The pool party? Karen said brightly. We were thinking Saturday the 15th. There would be maybe 20 kids total. We'd keep it small, very manageable. You wouldn't have to do anything. I'd handle all the food and setup. Karen, Maya said carefully, I appreciate you asking, but no, that's not going to work. She expected Karen to be embarrassed or to laugh it off. Instead, Karen's face did something strange. A flicker of something hard passed across it before the smile snapped back into place. Oh, I thought since we'd been using the pool anyway. Using it, Maya repeated. I mean, the kids have been swimming here, Karen said, and now there was a defensive edge to her voice. I figured it was kind of a community thing, like you go to all the trouble of maintaining it and we help by using it, sharing resources. That's not how private property works, Maya said quietly. I know that, Karen said, and her smile was gone now. I'm not an idiot, I just thought maybe you were a generous person. I guess I was wrong. She turned and walked away, her ponytail swinging sharply. By the next day, it was clear that Karen had decided Maya Henderson was the villain in some personal narrative she'd constructed. When Maya ran into her at the mailbox, Karen barely nodded. When the kids asked if they could go to the pool, Karen replied loudly enough for Maya to hear. We can't go to other people's pools, honey. That's not how we're taught to behave. The implication was cutting. Maya was rude. Maya was unwelcoming. Maya was the kind of person who hoarded resources while children went without. It took 3 weeks before Karen found her way back into the backyard. It was a Saturday morning in late July. Maya was doing laps, actual purposeful laps, nose to the water, counting strokes. She was on her 18th lap when she noticed the shadow on the deck. She surfaced, pushing her hair from her face. Karen was standing at the edge of the pool, fully clothed, her arms crossed. We need to talk about this, Karen said. There's nothing to talk about, Maya replied, still in the water. She didn't move toward the edge. The pool suddenly felt like protection, a moat between them. There's everything to talk about. Do you know what the median home price is on this street? Do you know that we pay the same property taxes as you do? This neighborhood is a community. We contribute to it. We're part of it. You're part of the neighborhood, Maya said. You're not part of my pool. There's a difference. That's the most selfish thing I've ever heard. It's not selfish. It's boundaries. It's the basic concept of private property. You could get your own pool. Some of us can't afford $47,000 toys, Karen shot back. Some of us are actually focused on things that matter, like raising good kids and being decent to our neighbors. And yet you've been trespassing on my property for 2 months. The word trespassing hung in the air like a slap. Maya saw Karen's face go white, then red. Trespassing, Karen repeated. You think that's what I'm doing? I'm trying to build community. I'm trying to help my kids have good memories, and instead I get treated like I'm some kind of criminal. You have a choice, Maya said, climbing out of the pool. Water streamed off her, cold from the air conditioning units running all night. She felt more powerful standing up at eye level. You can stop coming into my backyard uninvited, or I can install a lock on the gate. You wouldn't. I would. Karen stared at her for a long moment. Maya watched the calculations happening behind her eyes. Embarrassment, anger, shame, determination. Finally, Karen turned and walked back through the gate. But as she was leaving, she called over her shoulder. People are going to know what you're like. People are going to understand exactly who you are. The threat, because it was a threat, made Maya's stomach clench. But she didn't respond. She just stood there dripping as Karen Marshall disappeared through the side gate. It would take her 3 more days to realize that Karen had meant every word. By early August, the neighborhood had become an echo chamber of Karen's narrative. It started small, a comment at the mailbox. It's a shame when people have so much and share so little. A post in the neighborhood Facebook group, the Maple Street Collective, about the importance of community values. A mention to Brenda, who happened to live 2 doors down from Maya and had always seemed friendly enough. Some people's priorities are just different, I guess. But Karen was strategic. She didn't attack Maya directly. Instead, she built a case. She volunteered for the Neighborhood Beautification Committee and immediately proposed a community pool fund where residents could contribute to a shared amenity for the neighborhood. When the proposal was rejected, There was no space for another pool, and the HOA budget was already allocated. Karen made sure to mention this at every social gathering. "I just thought we could all do something nice together," she'd say wistfully. Apparently not everyone feels that way. She started asking the other neighbors about their pools. Did they have them? Would they let the neighborhood kids use them? One neighbor, a retired man named Phil who had a small above-ground pool, apparently said yes, and Karen was suddenly at his house multiple times a week with her children and an increasingly large group of kids from the neighborhood. Maya watched from her porch one evening as there were literally 14 children in Phil's tiny backyard pool. Phil looked exhausted and overwhelmed, but he was too kind to say no. "At least someone understands community," Karen posted on the Maple Street Collective Facebook page with a photo of the kids in Phil's pool. She didn't tag anyone. She didn't need to. Maya's breaking point came when she received an email from the HOA. The subject line read, "Questions regarding backyard maintenance and neighborhood standards." The email, written in the formal tone of Linda Chen, the HOA president, requested a meeting to discuss certain concerns that had been raised about Maya's property. Specifically, there were allegations that Maya was maintaining an unsafe pool environment and that she was prohibiting neighborhood children from accessing a potentially dangerous body of water without proper supervision. Maya read it 3 times before the words made sense. Karen had reported her to the HOA, not for anything Maya had actually done wrong, but for the implication that by not letting every child in the neighborhood use her pool, she was somehow creating a hazard. The meeting with Linda Chen was brief and humiliating. Linda, a woman in her 60s who always wore her gray hair in a severe bun and who had never spoken to Maya before, had photocopied emails from other neighbors. Some were from Karen. Some were from people Maya didn't even know, anonymous complaints about safety concerns and the appearance of exclusivity. "Legally, you can do what you want with your property," Linda said, shuffling papers. "But the HOA code does include language about maintaining community standards and not creating environmental hazards." "A pool in my backyard isn't a hazard," Maya said quietly. "And I'm not prohibited from. There's nothing in the HOA code that says I have to let my neighbors use my pool." "No," Linda agreed, "but there is language about not impeding community goodwill. Several neighbors have expressed concerns. I felt it was worth bringing up." What Linda didn't say, but what Maya understood perfectly, was that Karen had successfully weaponized the HOA. It was brilliant, actually. There was no rule being broken, no law being violated, nothing to point to and say, "This is unfair." Just a vague sense of community standards and goodwill, like an invisible fence that Karen had constructed out of insinuation and suggestion. That night, Maya sat at her kitchen table with a glass of wine and a laptop, and she did something she'd been avoiding. She went to the Maple Street Collective Facebook page and read every comment on every post from the past 6 weeks. There were so many. Karen had been systematic. "I just think generosity costs nothing," one post read. "Some people are blessed with more, and it's our job to bless others." "My kids are learning so much about empathy this summer," another read, with a photo of the twins swimming at Phil's house. "It's amazing what happens when neighbors actually care about each other." "It's interesting," one particularly cutting comment read, "how much someone needs to spend on their backyard to feel important." The comments section was full of hearts and supportive emojis from other neighborhood women. Clearly, Karen had positioned herself as the protagonist of her own morality play, and Maya, by virtue of simply not wanting strangers in her backyard, had been cast as the antagonist. Maya closed the laptop. She got up and walked to the window. She could see the pool from the kitchen, illuminated by the landscape lighting. It looked perfect. It looked untouched. It looked lonely. The next morning, Maya did something she'd been threatening to do. She called a contractor and asked for an estimate on installing a fence around the pool area. Not a small fence. A tall one, 6 feet minimum, with a locking gate. The contractor came out, looked at the pool, looked at the property line, and gave her a number, $8,000. "You sure?" he asked. "That's a pretty substantial investment." "I'm sure," Maya said. She scheduled it to start the following week. But she didn't anticipate how fast Karen would move once she found out. The kids told her, apparently. One of them mentioned it at school, and word traveled through the neighborhood grapevine fast enough to make heads spin. By Thursday, there was a new post on the Maple Street Collective. Guys, I don't want to name names, but did anyone else see the contractors measuring for a privacy fence around someone's pool? I'm not saying it's a response to us asking for community access, but it certainly feels pointed. It certainly feels like someone is making a statement. A sad statement about what our neighborhood has become. A sad statement about what passes for friendship these days. The comments were immediate. That's so unnecessary. A fence, really, to keep out a few kids. I would never. I feel for her kids, honestly. Maya made the mistake of commenting. She shouldn't have, but she did. My property, my fence, it's not personal, it's boundaries. Karen's response came within minutes. Oh, it's personal, Maya, we all know it. And BTW, you can't just put up a fence without HOA approval. I already checked the bylaws. Maya felt her face go hot. She checked the bylaws that night. Karen was right. Any structure over 4 feet required HOA approval and architectural review. The fence contractor had failed to mention this. Maya sent him an angry email canceling the job. She was trapped. She couldn't build the fence without HOA approval, and with Karen already at war with her, getting that approval felt impossible. Karen clearly had more social capital in the neighborhood than Maya did. Karen had been orchestrating this for weeks. The solution came to her on a Friday night, sitting poolside with another glass of wine. It was elegant in its simplicity. If Karen wanted the pool to be a community resource so badly, if she wanted Maya to be the villain in her story, then Maya would simply remove the pool from the equation entirely. By Saturday morning, Maya had called 3 pool demolition companies. The first 2 said they couldn't get crews out for at least 2 months. But the third, a company called AquaClear, said they had a cancellation and could start on Monday. You sure about this? The supervisor asked. These pools are expensive to remove. Usually people want to try to sell them or donate them first. I'm sure, Maya said. I want it gone. How fast can you do it? We can have it drained and demolished by Tuesday night. Removal and site restoration by end of week. Do it, Maya said. She didn't tell anyone, not Karen, not the HOA, not anyone on the Maple Street Collective Facebook page. On Monday morning at 7 a.m., 3 dump trucks pulled up to her house. There were 5 workers in hard hats. By noon, they had drained the pool, and the sound of the sledgehammer against fiberglass started, a rhythmic, violent sound that carried across 3 backyards. Crash, crash, crash. Karen's car was in her driveway. Maya knew she heard it. It took 4 hours to demolish the pool. By 6 p.m., there was nothing left but broken fiberglass scattered across the yard and the skeleton of the pool structure waiting for removal. The workers left at 6:30, promising to return Tuesday morning to finish the job. At 7:15 p.m., Karen appeared at Maya's front door. She didn't ring the doorbell. She didn't knock. She pounded on it, a furious, desperate sound, and when Maya opened the door, she found Karen's face inches from her own, eyes wide with something between rage and panic. What did you do? Karen's voice shook. What the fuck did you do? What I want with my own property, Maya said calmly. You destroyed a pool. You had a beautiful pool that you didn't own, Maya finished. That you had no right to use, and now I don't have to deal with the trespassing anymore. Karen made a sound that was almost a scream, pure animal frustration. You did this to me. This is because of me. You destroyed thousands of dollars just to prove a point. I destroyed my own property because I wanted to, Maya said. And you know what? It feels great. I feel lighter already. You're insane. You're actually insane. Do you understand what this looks like to people? Do you understand what you're telling the neighborhood? You're telling them that you'd rather destroy something beautiful than let anyone else enjoy it. That's not generosity. That's not even normal. That's evil. Get off my porch, Karen. I'm not going anywhere. The neighborhood needs to see this. Everyone needs to understand what kind of person you are. Karen turned and started walking toward her house. Maya thought she was leaving. But then Karen grabbed her phone, and before Maya could react, she was filming the demolition site, the broken pool, the equipment. She was narrating as she walked. This is what happens when someone in our community values their possessions more than their neighbors. This is what happens when someone would rather destroy than share. Maya watched Karen's livestream hit the Maple Street Collective page in real time. Within minutes, comments started flooding in. Within an hour, the video had been shared to the neighborhood's group chat. By bedtime, it had been shared to 3 other neighborhood Facebook groups and had nearly 200 reactions. The narrative was complete. Maya wasn't just unfriendly anymore. She wasn't just stingy or cold or a bad neighbor. She was someone who destroyed beautiful things out of pure spite. And Karen was the martyr. Karen was the one who had tried so hard to build community, to create good memories for her children, only to have it all torn down by a woman so bitter and twisted that she couldn't stand to see anyone else happy. The irony was so thick you could drown in it. The message read, "My wife has been trying to reach out to you. I think we should talk before this escalates." Maya stared at the text for 10 minutes before responding. "There's nothing to talk about." She didn't block him, which probably was a mistake. By Tuesday afternoon, there was a post on the Maple Street Collective from Derek himself. It was measured, diplomatic, the writing of a man trained in accounting and compromise. "I think this situation has gotten out of hand. While I understand boundaries are important, I also think there might have been better ways to handle this. I'd like to suggest a mediation process. Sometimes our neighbors are the only family we have." The comments were sympathetic. Derek had positioned himself as the reasonable one, the voice of calm in the chaos. Maya felt her support in the neighborhood evaporate further. She told herself not to engage. She told herself to ignore the posts, ignore the Facebook messages from people she'd never met offering judgment disguised as support, ignore the neighborhood WhatsApp group that apparently existed and in which people were discussing her mental state and stability. But on Wednesday, she would later find out it was a woman named Sheila who lived 3 houses over, created a petition. The petition was titled "Community Safety and Backyard Accountability," and the description read, "We, the undersigned, believe that backyard amenities that pose potential dangers to neighborhood children require HOA oversight and community safety standards. We request that all residents with swimming pools or water features sign a community agreement regarding access and maintenance standards, or remove said amenities from their properties." It didn't mention Maya by name. It didn't need to. The petition got 42 signatures within 12 hours. That night, Maya made a decision. She called her office and requested to work from home indefinitely. She called her favorite restaurant and ordered a week's worth of meals for delivery. She installed new locks on all her doors, changed her security settings on all her social media accounts to private, and deleted the Maple Street Collective app from her phone. She was going to hunker down and wait for this to blow over. News cycles were fast. People got bored. Something else would become the neighborhood scandal eventually, and everyone would forget about Maya Henderson and her destroyed pool. But she didn't anticipate that Karen was just getting started. On Thursday morning, there was a notice in her mailbox from the HOA. It was a formal letter on letterhead, signed by Linda Chen. The letter stated that there had been complaints about safety violations and maintenance concerns related to her property. Specifically, the pool had been demolished without proper documentation or permit requests, and there were now exposed concrete pads and potential environmental hazards. The letter requested that Maya submit documentation of the demolition, provide proof that the contractor had been licensed and insured, and schedule an inspection of the property. It was a power move. It was Karen's way of saying, you can't just destroy things and expect no consequences. What Karen didn't realize was that Maya had made sure everything was above board. The contractor was licensed and insured. All demolition permits had been filed. When the HOA inspector came out on Friday afternoon, there were literally no violations. The site was clean. The debris had been removed and taken to an approved dump, and the remaining concrete pad was perfectly legal as long as Maya eventually decided what to do with it, pour over it, remove it, or leave it as is. The inspector, a tired-looking man in his 50s, looked baffled by the complaint. "This is all fine," he told Maya as he made notes on his tablet. "Perfectly fine. I'm not sure what the complaint was about. Most people, they don't maintain their demolition sites this well. You're good." "So no violations?" Maya asked, just to be clear. "No violations," the inspector confirmed. "Your property is compliant." The HOA letter came the following Tuesday, clearing Maya of any wrongdoing. But the damage had already been done. The narrative had stuck. Maya was the villain. Maya was the one destroying things. Maya was the problem. It was Thursday of the following week when things took a darker turn. Maya was leaving to go to the grocery store when she noticed something on her mailbox. At first, she thought it was an official document. There were so many of them coming now. But when she opened it, she found a handwritten note on notebook paper. The handwriting was childish, careful. It read, "Mrs. Henderson, I am sorry my mom is mad at you. I like you. I hope you are okay. Love, Emma." Emma was Corinne's 7-year-old daughter. Maya felt something break open in her chest. She sat down on the front steps and read the note 3 times. The idea that Corinne's children were aware of the conflict, that they felt compelled to reach out to the woman their mother had cast as a villain, it was devastating in a way she hadn't anticipated. She didn't know what to do with the note. She kept it on her kitchen counter for 2 days before throwing it away because looking at it made her feel guilty, and she didn't want to feel guilty. She didn't want to feel anything. But the guilt didn't leave. It manifested as insomnia. It manifested as anxiety. It manifested as an obsessive checking of her Ring doorbell footage, watching for trespassers or people staring at her house. It manifested as a careful documentation of every Facebook post, every comment, every insinuation, in case she needed to prove that Corinne had waged a deliberate campaign against her. The stress of it all was making her thin. She stopped sleeping well. She stopped eating. She stopped going outside except to get the mail and her deliveries. Her sister called on a Friday night asking if she was okay. "You sound weird," Jenna said. "You sound not like you." "I'm fine," Maya lied. "You're not fine. What's going on?" So Maya told her. She spent 45 minutes explaining the whole situation: the pool, Corinne's entitlement, the trespassing, the campaign, the petition, the destroyed pool. She explained everything, and when she was done, there was silence on the line. "Maya," Jenna said finally, "do you hear yourself? You demolished a $47,000 pool to make a point to a woman you've known for 3 months. She was trespassing," Maya said defensively. "She was using your pool without permission. That sucks. But you could have just locked the gate. You could have called the police once if you were really concerned. You could have talked to her calmly. Instead, you're so angry that you've been obsessively documenting her behavior, and you're not sleeping, and you're basically having a breakdown because someone on Facebook said mean things about you." "She didn't just say mean things, she organized the neighborhood against you. I know, she sounds like a nightmare. But here's the thing, Maya, you're letting her destroy your mental health. She didn't destroy the pool. You did. And now you're in some kind of vendetta with someone who, at the end of the day, is just a bored suburban mom with too much time on her hands." "It's not that simple," Maya said. "It is, though," Jenna said gently. "You're the only one making it complicated. You're the only one making it personal. Let it go. Let her be angry. You're going to drive yourself insane trying to prove that you were right." After they hung up, Maya sat in her kitchen in the dark, and she understood that her sister was right. She had given Corinne exactly what Corinne wanted: power over her. She had let a neighborhood conflict consume her life. But understanding that and changing it were 2 different things. It was then, in that dark moment, that she made a choice. She was going to end this, not by fighting back further, not by engaging with Corinne or the neighborhood's social media or any of it. She was going to move. The real estate market was hot in the fall. Maya's house appraised at $485,000, $60,000 more than she'd paid for it 3 years ago. She called a realtor on Monday morning. The realtor, a woman named Tina who had been her neighbor and friend once upon a time, before Corinne's influence had poisoned that friendship too, seemed surprised to hear from her. "I want to sell," Maya said without preamble. As fast as possible. I don't care about staging or showing windows. I want an offer within 30 days. Tina tried to convince her that they could get a better price with some preparation, some staging, some professional photos. But there was something in Maya's voice that must have told her not to push. "Okay," Tina said carefully. "I'll list it this week." The house sold in 18 days. A young couple, the Chens, no relation to Linda Chen from the HOA, mercifully, offered the asking price with a 30-day closing. They had a baby on the way and wanted to be settled before winter. Maya signed the paperwork without hesitation. She didn't tell anyone on Maple Street. She didn't post about it on the neighborhood Facebook page. She didn't give Corinne the satisfaction of knowing that she was leaving because of her. The plan was simple: pack, move, disappear, start over somewhere else, anywhere else. There were plenty of neighborhoods in the city that didn't have Facebook groups dedicated to neighborhood drama. There were plenty of places where she could install a pool without having to share it with anyone. Or maybe she wouldn't install a pool at all. Maybe she'd just have a life that was quiet and private and hers alone. It was October 15th when the moving trucks pulled up. Maya had hired movers to handle the heavy stuff. She'd spent the past 2 weeks going through her belongings, deciding what went with her into her new life and what stayed. The bulk of it stayed. Furniture that had seemed fine when she was trying to make an impression on a neighborhood that didn't deserve her seemed suddenly exhausting now. The movers were efficient. They worked fast, loading boxes and furniture with mechanical precision. Maya supervised, directed traffic, signed paperwork. By evening, the house was half empty, echoing and strange. She sat on the floor of her kitchen with a pizza from a place that had delivered it to the curb, and she felt something that might have been peace for the first time in 2 months. She was going to leave. She was going to leave behind the conflict, the drama, the Facebook groups, the petitions, the judgment. She was going to leave Corinne Marshall and her crusade and her moral superiority and all of it. It was such a simple solution that Maya couldn't believe she hadn't thought of it sooner. Why fight? Why engage? Why let someone else's narrative about you become your reality? She was going to be free. The next morning, Maya woke up in her empty house and felt lighter than she had in months. She walked through the rooms, noting the empty spaces where furniture had been, the indentations in the carpet, the picture hooks on the walls that had held artwork she no longer needed. She was making coffee in her mostly empty kitchen when she heard the knock. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't pounding. It was just a knock, the kind you give when you're nervous about whether someone will answer. Maya opened the door to find Corinne standing there. She looked different than she had at the front door that day when she'd screamed about the pool. She looked smaller somehow, deflated. She was wearing sweatpants and a hoodie, and her hair was in a messy bun. There were circles under her eyes. "I heard you were leaving," Corinne said quietly. "I am," Maya said. She didn't invite her inside. "Is it because of me?" Maya considered lying, but she was tired of lying, tired of performing, tired of the entire exhausting game. "Yes," she said. Corinne nodded like she'd confirmed something she already suspected. "I saw your house for sale on the MLS. I wanted to. I don't know what I wanted. To apologize, maybe, but I didn't think you'd want to hear from me." "I don't," Maya said. It came out harsher than she intended, but it was honest. "I know," Corinne said. She looked at her shoes. "I've been thinking about this a lot, about what I did, about how I handled everything." "Have you?" Maya said flatly. "I have, and I realize I was wrong." Corinne's voice cracked slightly. "I was really wrong. I didn't have a right to use your pool. I didn't have a right to bring my kids over without permission. And when you said no, I should have just accepted that. But instead, I made you into the bad guy because I couldn't handle the disappointment. I couldn't handle not getting what I wanted." Maya didn't say anything. She waited. "The thing is," Corinne continued, looking up now, "I've lived a lot of my life letting other people define what I'm supposed to want, what I'm supposed to be. My mom always said I was selfish if I didn't share, if I didn't make others happy. If I put myself first, it meant I was a bad person. So I go through life trying to prove I'm not selfish, trying to prove I'm generous and good and the kind of person who thinks of others. And when you didn't want to share your pool, it felt like a rejection of all of that. It felt like you were saying I was the kind of person I'm most afraid of being, selfish and cold." "That's not really my problem," Maya said, but her voice had softened slightly. "I know it's not. I made it your problem, and I'm sorry. I am genuinely sorry. I organized a campaign against you because I couldn't handle my own feelings about rejection. I involved other people. I involved my kids. I made them part of my vendetta against you, and that's—" Corinne's voice broke. "That's not good parenting. That's not good neighbor behavior. That's just being a person who couldn't take no for an answer." Maya stood in the doorway of her empty kitchen, and she felt the weight of the past 3 months lift just slightly. Not entirely, not enough to make everything okay or forgiven or resolved, but enough to make her realize that Corinne's behavior said nothing about her and everything about Corinne. "Why are you telling me this?" Maya asked. "Because you're leaving, and I don't want to be the reason you hate this neighborhood. Or worse, the reason you hate yourself for responding the way you did. Because I know I made you react in ways you probably aren't proud of, and I wanted you to know that none of it was actually about you. It was all about me." "The pool demolition was me," Maya said. "You didn't make me do that. That was my choice, my anger." "I know," Corinne said. And I don't think you were wrong for being angry. I just think you deserve to make your choice from a calm place, not from a reactionary place. And I robbed you of that choice by being awful." They stood there for a moment, and the silence felt like something, acknowledgement maybe, an ending. "I'm going to finish getting my things packed," Maya said finally. "I close on the house next week." "Okay," Karen said. I hope you're happy in your new place. I hope you never have to deal with someone like me again." She turned to leave, and then she paused. "For what it's worth, you were right, about the boundaries, about it being your property. You had every right to say no, I just didn't want to hear it." After Karen left, Maya stood in the doorway for a long time. She thought about pressing charges, about going to the police with documentation of harassment. She thought about posting her own version of events on the neighborhood Facebook page, creating her own counter-narrative. But she didn't do any of that. She just packed the rest of her things and scheduled a therapy appointment for after she moved. The closing happened on November 3rd. The Chens were thrilled with the house, already talking about ripping out the dead grass and planting a garden. Maya signed the papers and walked out with a check that would pay off her mortgage and leave her with nearly $300,000 toward whatever came next. She spent her last night in the house lying on the floor of her bedroom, watching the shadows move across the walls as the sun set. She thought about the pool, about Karen, about the neighborhood, about all the ways that a simple disagreement could spiral into something that consumed your entire life. And she understood that leaving wasn't really escaping. It was choosing not to stay in a story that wasn't hers to tell. The moving trucks came at 7 a.m. on November 4th. By noon, the house was empty. By 2 p.m., Maya's lease had begun on a small one-bedroom apartment in a quieter part of the city, in a complex where no one knew her name, and where she would be just another anonymous person living just another anonymous life. She unpacked slowly over the next few days. She hung minimal artwork. She bought a small table for her kitchen. She set up her bedroom with high-quality bedding and blackout curtains. It was spare, but it was peaceful. The Maple Street Collective did not miss her. There was a single post from an anonymous account. "Looks like some people just couldn't handle being part of a real community. Guess some people prefer isolation to connection." Karen did not comment. Karen did not engage. Maya saw the post because someone from the old neighborhood sent her the screenshot, but she didn't respond. She was already building a new life, one where her property was her own and her boundaries were her own, and her choices came from a place of peace rather than anger. She had escaped, or rather she had finally understood that the only way to truly escape Karen and the neighborhood war was to stop fighting it, to stop engaging with it, to simply step outside of the narrative entirely. It would take her 6 months to realize that this was the one victory Karen had never anticipated. 6 months later, on a Tuesday morning in May, Maya received a call from Tina, her realtor. "You're not going to believe what happened," Tina said without preamble. "What?" Maya asked, though she wasn't particularly invested. Her life had become blessedly uncomplicated in the months since moving. Work, therapy, exercise, a small friend group that didn't include anyone from Maple Street. She had built a quiet existence, and she liked it. "Karen Marshall is suing the neighborhood," Tina said. "Or rather, she's in a lawsuit with the HOA and like 8 other homeowners, and it involves a whole thing with pool regulations and liability." Despite herself, Maya felt a flicker of curiosity. "What happened?" "So apparently after you left, Phil, you know the guy with the above-ground pool that Karen basically took over for the entire summer. He ended up letting his pool get really poorly maintained. The chlorine levels were off, there was algae, it was gross. And then his liability insurance got canceled because of the poor maintenance. Meanwhile, there had been all this Facebook drama about him being a good neighbor and letting everyone use his pool, and apparently some kids got sick from the water." "Oh no," Maya said, and she meant it. "Oh yes," Tina continued. "The parents of the sick kids sued Phil, and Phil sued the HOA, saying that the HOA encouraged him to maintain a public amenity without giving him proper guidance on maintenance standards. And now the HOA is defending themselves by saying that homeowners are not responsible for public health in their private backyards, which obviously implicates Karen and everyone else who was posting about community resources and sharing amenities." "That's terrible," Maya said, "for Phil especially." "It gets worse," Tina said. "Karen is also being sued by one of the parents directly, because she was the one who organized the use of Phil's pool and was encouraging people to use it without any supervision or safety measures. It's basically liability city. Maya felt something twist in her stomach. She had spent months working on not caring about Corinne Marshall, on not thinking about her, on letting her go. But there was something about this news that made it impossible not to feel something. "How much is she being sued for?" Maya asked. "Like $50,000 in medical bills and damages, plus legal fees. And the HOA lawsuit could cost her thousands more in fines if they determine she acted negligently in promoting an unsafe water environment." It should have felt good. It should have felt like justice. Corinne, who had spent months trying to destroy Maya's reputation and peace of mind, was now facing actual legal consequences for her actions. But it didn't feel good. It felt like a tragedy that nobody had needed to happen. "Thanks for letting me know," Maya said. "I appreciate the update." "Aren't you glad?" Tina asked. "Aren't you glad you got out before this all happened? Aren't you glad that the neighborhood finally sees what Corinne was really doing?" "I don't know," Maya said honestly. "Maybe." After she hung up, Maya sat at her kitchen table for a long time. She thought about Corinne's face when she'd come to apologize, genuinely apologize, that last morning before the move. She thought about the note from Emma in her mailbox. She thought about the fact that Corinne had spent all that energy trying to build community precisely because she was terrified of being the kind of person she was afraid she was. And now she was being sued. Now she was facing real consequences. Now the narrative that she had so carefully constructed had come crashing down. Maya opened her email and typed a message to Tina. "Can you give me Corinne Marshall's phone number? I want to reach out." Tina responded within minutes. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Maya wrote back. She called Corinne that evening. Corinne picked up on the third ring. Her voice was guarded. "Hello." "It's Maya," Maya said. There was silence, then, "Oh, hi, how did you? Tina gave you my number." "Yes, I heard about the lawsuit with Phil's pool. I wanted to call and see how you were doing." Another pause. When Corinne spoke, her voice sounded thick with tears. It's been really bad, actually. The legal fees are enormous. Derek and I are fighting about money. The kids don't understand what's happening. I've become the person I was most afraid of being, the kind of person who creates chaos and hurt. And it's all because I couldn't just accept that you said no to me." "It's not all because of that," Maya said gently. "Phil made choices too. The other parents made choices. The HOA made choices. This isn't on you alone. But I'm the one who created the environment where it seemed normal for people to use someone else's pool without proper supervision. I'm the one who talked about community resources and sharing as if those things didn't require actual agreements and safety standards. I'm the one who positioned myself as the good neighbor, which meant that when people got sick, it was my fault for promoting this idea of casual community resources." "People are responsible for their own decisions," Maya said, but even as she said it, she wondered if it was true. Corinne had created a narrative. She had created a culture. And yes, people had made individual choices within that culture, but culture shaped choices. "Why are you being nice to me?" Corinne asked. "Because I realized something," Maya said. "I spent months being angry at you. I demolished a $47,000 pool to prove a point. I let you consume my thoughts and my peace. And then I just left, and you've been dealing with all of this." "You had every right to be angry," Corinne said. "I was awful." "You were," Maya agreed. "But you were awful because you were scared and insecure and you made choices from a place of panic. That's not good, but it's human." They talked for an hour. They talked about what Corinne had been going through, the isolation, the judgment from the neighborhood. Many people had distanced themselves from her once the lawsuit was filed. The guilt about involving her kids in the drama. Corinne talked about Derek, who had wanted to move as well but felt financially trapped. She talked about the twins, who had acted out at school because they understood, on some level, that their mother had become a social pariah. And Maya talked about her own experience, the sleepless nights, the obsessive documentation, the way she'd let herself spiral into anxiety and anger. She talked about moving, about therapy, about learning boundaries for herself that included psychological boundaries, not just property boundaries. "I think," Maya said toward the end of the conversation, "that we both did things we weren't proud of, and I spent a long time being angry at you for your part. But I was also angry at myself for my part, and I think that's what made it so hard to let go." "What are you saying?" Karen asked quietly. I'm saying that I forgive you, not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger at you was hurting me, not you. Karen cried then, openly, the kind of cry that comes from a place of exhaustion and relief and shame all mixed together. After they hung up, Maya sat with her own feelings. She didn't know if this phone call would lead to friendship. She didn't know if Karen would change, really change, or if this was just one moment of clarity in the middle of a difficult time. She didn't know what would happen with the lawsuits or if Karen would be able to recover from the financial and social devastation. But she knew one thing: she felt better. The weight that she'd been carrying for the past 6 months, the anger, the vindication, the satisfaction of knowing that Karen was suffering, had lifted. 2 weeks later, Karen texted her. The HOA agreed to a settlement. We have to pay $8,000 in fines and attend a mediation class on neighborhood disputes. I also have to pay Phil's legal fees, which is another $12,000. I'm devastated, but also relieved, like at least it's over. Maya texted back, I'm glad there's a resolution. How are the kids? They're good. Derek and I did family therapy, which helped. We're not moving, but we're definitely keeping our distance from the neighborhood's social stuff. Derek is actually pretty good at boundaries when he's not deferring to me about them. That's good, Maya wrote. And it was good. It wasn't a perfect ending. Karen still had to live with the consequences of her choices. Phil was dealing with the fallout of the lawsuits and the damage to his property and his reputation. The neighborhood was fractured into factions, with some people taking Karen's side and others blaming her for the chaos. But Maya had made peace with it. She had realized that her only responsibility was to her own life, her own peace, her own choices. She couldn't control Karen. She couldn't control the neighborhood. She could only control whether she stayed engaged with a conflict that didn't serve her. On a sunny day in June, almost a year after she'd first met Karen Marshall at the poolside, Maya did something she hadn't done since the demolition. She went to a pool. It was a public pool at a community center near her apartment. She paid $5 for admission and swam laps in a lane designated for lap swimmers. She didn't own it. She didn't maintain it. She didn't have to defend her right to be there. She just swam. And it was peaceful in a way her beautiful pool had never been, because it wasn't attached to expectations or claims or narratives. It was just water and the simple act of moving through it. When she got out of the pool, she felt lighter. She texted Tina, "Tell Karen I said hello if you see her." Tina responded, "I will, she'll be surprised in a good way." That evening, Karen texted, "Thank you for saying hello. It meant more to me than I can probably explain without being weird about it." Maya wrote back, "You're welcome, take care of yourself." And she meant it. Not because they were friends now, or because everything was resolved, or because the past year hadn't been difficult and painful and complicated, but because she understood, finally, that Karen was just another person trying to be the kind of person she thought she should be, and failing in very human ways. We're all just doing our best, Maya thought, and sometimes our best creates chaos. Sometimes we hurt people we care about. Sometimes we hurt people we don't know. And sometimes the only way to make peace with that is to forgive ourselves first. She didn't regret demolishing the pool. It had been the right choice for her in that moment, when she was trapped and angry and desperate to take back control. But she also understood that there had been other choices available to her, and she'd chosen the most dramatic one. Next time, she might choose differently. And there would be a next time, because life was long and people were complicated and conflict was inevitable. But she was learning to move through it with more grace and less righteousness, and that was something.